our first story, John, is terrifying. That someone from the MI5, for some reason, has come out of the shadows to tell us that Russia and China are targeting MPs. Um, why do you think they'd be coming out of the shadows for that?
Well, it's a useful distraction from mass COVID deaths and everything, and this imminent invasion of Ukraine that's taking a few weeks to happen is a bit reminiscent to the 45 minutes that we got once Saddam attacked us. And the quote in the article: Russia and China are waging an all-encompassing war for international supremacy. It were okay when we were closing down all our major industries and exporting it to China because it were allegedly cheaper. And when the USSR collapsed, people were saying it's the end of history. We've got to celebrate, and look what a monstrous regime that is. And we've got a prime minister who, if you're the wife of a Russian oligarch and you've got 160,000 quid hanging around, you can have a quick game of tennis with them. And yet, they're supposed to be influencing MPs, and it's almost laughable that I grew up in the 60s, when we were scared of the Russians. We had signs, we had leaflets coming out telling us that if the 4-minute warning went off, take all your doors off, prop them against the table, put some brown paper up against the windows, and you'll survive the nuclear winter. So it's ludicrous, and when you put the irony of statements like this in Western imperialism's history, bombing parts of the Middle East, Ukraine, Iraq, Libya, back into the Stone Age and handing it over to extreme fundamentalists, not to mention the colonialism and slavery that came out as a result of the British Empire. But all of a sudden, somebody breaks silence. They don't break silence when they're busy spying on trade unionists and infiltrating, like they did the NUM. And it's all when a government's in trouble, always raise the threat of war. We went to the Falklands to kill some teenage kids because apparently we've got part of Britain thousands and thousands of miles away. So we've always got to have an enemy, be it the USSR in the old days, the Cuban Missile Crisis, things like that. And now it's Russia and China, whereas it's really about Western imperialism, using NATO to expand on the borders of Russia, because this safe country they thought they'd created when the Soviet Union was overthrown is now run by monsters. And it's I'm getting sick of it, to be honest.
All right. Well, look, we'd better move on because I don't want you to, get your speed. I don't want to see your speedos. Anyway, look, Jackie, we've got another story that's quite dark and it's quite sinister, and it's almost we don't talk about this stuff. It's unsaid by the mainstream. They don't mention it because it's not somehow something they can talk about. But what can we say about all these strange suicidal? Epstein himself killed himself, and now his pimp has been found hanged. How dirty is this whole story?
Well, I want to say a lot of things about this, so I'll limit myself a bit. But for somebody who was a little girl without parents and went through children's homes, I'm just amazed people are amazed, because the power structures in our society have always enabled men with power to prey on young women. It happens everywhere. And it's not, the ruling class can do it and get away with it, just like they can take drugs and get away with it. I remember my daughter saying when she got into Cambridge, she went to an ordinary comprehensive school in Lewisham, right? And she got into Cambridge. She'd never taken any drugs when she was in Lewisham or Catford, believe it or not. And she said to me, Mum, do you know what? I have never seen so many drugs. If you want to score, go to King's College, Cambridge. You can get the best quality drugs, anything you like. And these people, and I know because these people are still some of my daughter's friends, they can take and do whatever they like and are very, very rarely prosecuted. What we've seen is a little bit of the carpet turned back. That's all we've seen here. That I also wanted to say, it's a sleazy, disgusting story. But of course, this kind of sleaze is usually used against Asian grooming gangs. I noticed that the BNP, not the BNP, but Britain First and all that lot, haven't got much to say about the royal family getting into it, have they? Which just shows you how this kind of thing has been really weaponized. I mean, I don't know how he died, and I don't know why, and I don't know who killed who or what, and I'm kind of not very interested in that part of the story, really, except that it is very, very convenient for a number of people. And it's particularly convenient, if you remember, for Andrew, I'm not going to call him Prince, for Andrew, who there was going to be more uncovered when this guy was actually tried. But also, what really does my head in is the fact that Mandelson, who went to visit Andrew, who went to see Epstein, who was all part of this elite circle. Now, I'm not saying that he's a kiddie fiddler, by the way. I'm not saying that. But he was all part of this circle. And what's extraordinary is the way the papers are virtually silent on the link between the puppet man of our new Labour Party, of this new Labour Party. They're totally silent on the murky links between the moneyed classes of the Labour Party and these kiddie fiddlers. And I think that is the real story behind it.
Right. Yeah, it's and if we look at our next story for you, John, it looks like the royal family feels threatened by what's happened with Andrew, and they think they can at the Jubilee in June, and they think they've got some hope with Kate because she's not sort of murky. What's your Are you going to be out in June, by the way?
Well, I've actually only got back in the small hours of the morning because I've been outside Buckingham Palace all weekend because I heard they were giving cash away to total strangers. So I thought I'd try my luck. And, it's great, this article. The Queen's soldiering on through all this, I mean, at least she's not come out like she did last time and told us about her piles when she had that anus or horribilis year. And it's the usual thing when the country's in the shit, royal wedding or a royal babby. And now, Kate is supposed to be the acceptable face. That'll be until they knock her off in case she gets too popular. And it's if they can't give them bread, give them circuses. I can't wait for these street parties, and I hope we've got weather like this when it happens. And all this masks the reality of what the royal family is. Every soldier who signs up serves Queen and country in that order. In the 1970s, the Queen's emissary to Australia sacked a left-wing Labour government under Gough Whitlam. That's the ultimate power that, not the Windsors, the Saxe-Coburg Gothers have got. The Nazi saluting queen who was taught to give the Nazi salute. You know, one of who in the 30s, a king had to abdicate because he was an ardent follower of Hitler. These people are incredibly privileged, and we've seen with Nonskate that they think they can get away with everything. You know, if you die without a will and no dependents, your money goes to the Duchy of Cornwall and things like that. It's feudalism still existing in this country, and for me, it's time. Don't celebrate them. Stop being the distraction that they are, and just get rid of them. It's time. We should never have had a royalty, and you know, I can't wait. I've got my name down with Amazon. You know, when young Harry Hewitt brings out his latest set of memoirs about what's really been going off, then again we'll have to have another babby or another royal wedding. They've run out of senior figures now, so you know, let's just hope that it's a great Jubilee. You know, I can't remember the last one because I didn't do anything for it.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you in around that time, John.
I've got the bunting ready to put up.
Oh, all right. Well, great. And final story, Jackie, is shows that sort of justice doesn't work the same way for different people. A terrorist is back in jail for failing a lie detector test. That's unbelievable. I mean, if Prince Andrew had to face a lie detector test, I don't think we wouldn't have had all these payoffs, would we? What do you think about this story?
Well, what we're getting is what you'd call a differentiated justice service, aren't we? Or a criminal service, where certain criminals are treated one way and others are treated another way. Now, in a way, that's only actually establishing in fact what has always happened. Because if you look and see, and it's a bit like what I was saying before about drugs, if you look and see who's actually jailed for crime, it's basically the working classes and the oppressed. It's not, you know, our prisons are not full of people who fiddle their tax returns or who sleep with young girls from the upper classes. They're filled with the working classes, with people from children's homes, from people from deprived backgrounds, and a large proportion of those are people with mental health problems and people who can't read. So there's all sorts. That's what we do with people who we've already oppressed. That's one thing. And the other thing I want to say is be very warned. When they start with just terrorists, they soften you up by you going, yeah, well, they're terrorists, you know, and we're pretty scared of these people. And then suddenly you'll find that they apply that to other people. Mm-hmm. There's also the issue of who they name as terrorists. I don't know if any of you remember, but not so long ago, there was a discussion as to whether a number of organizations on the left should be named as terrorists. Certainly a lot of anti-Zionist organizations should be named as terrorists. So we need to watch the language that is used. For example, in this article, they call this action groundbreaking. What they mean is there's no other country in the world that does anything like this. There's somebody who's come up with this, and they're just trying it out, and it makes really good newspaper fodder. And then if you look it through, there's no evidence, they say, that these people have committed any crime. So they go back to serve 10 and 20 years sentences, and there's no evidence that they've actually committed anyone. And the way they do these lie detector tests, they put them in a room and they actually create, they say, a sense of stress and pressure. I mean, some of us would call that torture. So again, they're softening us up to think we can actually have officially endorsed torture. Just one more note on the end of this article, I noticed that the Henry Jackson Society has endorsed this, and they're said to be an anti-terrorist group. Well, what they are is actually an Islamophobic far-right group. And a number of right Labour MPs are also, to their shame, part of this. The Henry Jackson Society, and this links with what I said about terrorism, in 2017 named me, along with Tommy Robinson, as the chief proponent of extremist speech. Now that is shocking, isn't it? So they then use Henry Jackson to endorse this. So apparently what I say is as bad as Tommy Robinson. Well, I would say that if you're in the establishment, I hope I do scare you that much.